Now to our one-on-one interview with Dr. Brett Carver, the wheat geneticist who leads Oklahoma State University's wheat improvement team. And this time, instead of talking in the wheat field, we headed to Persimmon Hill Bakery. Brett, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
For those viewers who may be newer to SUNUP or kind of seeing a segment on YouTube for the first time, let's start with some background on what the wheat improvement team is and how you and your fellow scientists work together.
Yes, this is a team of faculty that we've been together for some of us since 1998, for quite a long time. And some newer people, but it's just a true team of faculty from about 3 academic departments in our College of Agriculture, Division of Agriculture, plus 1 scientist from USDA ARS. We all have our different expertises, different ways of doing things in research, extension, and teaching, but we do have one thing in common, and that is the desire to improve wheat for the betterment of our farmers, for the betterment of our industry, millers and bakers, but also for the betterment of our consumers, which is a little bit different take than most wheat improvement teams.
And a lot of varieties released over the last however many years, 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah, it's about 1 per year on the average. There may be a couple years where we go with 0, but we'll make up for it.
We always like to visit with you on SUNUP throughout the year. Normally we're out in the field where we're seeing the potential varieties that you may be releasing someday and kind of weaving through there. But today we're at Persimmon Hill Bakery. Why this location in particular for our conversation today?
Couldn't think of a better place, and I just think it really points out the very fact that we are in the field, actually the business of producing food. You know, this is not a wheat improvement team devoted to just making a crop. This is making food for everyone to enjoy, and this is certainly one of those foods that we would enjoy, and I really like having that as a backdrop.
Today's conversation, we really want to center around fiber, which is something you're focused on, you and the team are focused on right now.
Correct, and it's a focus of wheat and these baked goods behind us. There probably is not as much fiber in these food products than would be in, say, a whole wheat loaf of bread. There are times I wish when just like everyone else, I love donuts. I wish the donut had a little bit more fiber in it. And we're actually trying to do something about that.
So maybe back up and let's talk about what constitutes fiber and how you're looking at that as a scientist.
Yeah, and it's really important we understand what it is, fiber. And so to understand that, we need to think about what are the really 3 what we call macronutrients in a balanced diet. Those would be protein, of course, carbohydrates. Not all carbohydrates are bad. We're going to find that out today. And then also lipids, or otherwise called fat. We need all 3 of those nutrients. And fiber is part of that carbohydrate component. A really important part of that carbohydrate component. The part that tends to be less digestible or less readily digestible in our digestive system. So it doesn't get digested in our stomach or our small intestine. That's the very definition of fiber. A carbohydrate that resists digestion goes all the way to the colon, and that's where it does its job and does a good job.
We're hearing more about fiber all the time. Let's talk now about why it's important to incorporate fiber into our daily diet.
Yeah, and I think of 2 things. 2 things come to mind to a lot of people in the science area about fiber, and that is, number 1, it slows the rate of digestion. And I'm going to mention this a few times today because that's really important to our health, is slowing the rate of digestion of certain carbohydrates. And it also, perhaps even bigger, it feeds the beneficial bacteria in our gut. We have to feed those bacteria. If we don't, we end up getting a less desirable bacterial population, which is a less healthy gut. So we need fiber for both of those things. Unfortunately, and I was looking at the figures recently, we're just not consuming enough fiber. I look at it personally. I want to make sure I'm getting what is recommended. And there's a pretty uniform recommendation for that. We should be getting as adults, children a little bit less, we should be getting about 25 grams of fiber in our diet daily. We only consume on the average 16 grams. So we're 9 grams short. We're only 2/3 of the way there. So we really need to improve that. And then only 5% of Americans, only 5% of us get that 25 grams. So there's a lot of room for improvement in our dietary habits, but I think we can also do some things in science to make that more possible, a more realistic goal.
This has really got you thinking as a scientist, and most people don't realize this, me included, but we really rely on wheat as a source of fiber, or wheat products.
Exactly, and I was a little bit surprised when I first read that. But yes, 30% of the fiber we consume in our daily diet does come from wheat products, including those that surround us in this store. And you know, I think, okay, that's good, but we are short of our target, that 25 gram target. So what can we as wheat scientists, wheat breeders like me, do to enhance that probability we consume more fiber from our wheat foods? And that's been a driving motivation of this breeding program. It's not the primary. You know, we're breeding wheat for farmers to make a living, of course, to put enough food on our tables we can merely eat. Anytime we as scientists can improve the quality of what we eat, we should take that opportunity.
When you're looking at a kernel of wheat, where does the fiber come from in that kernel? And
so it was, you know, first I learned, okay, wheat is the primary source of our fiber. Well, where is that coming from? And now it makes sense. I kind of knew it, but then I didn't know it. And there's 4 principal sources of fiber in a wheat kernel. Number one is probably the more obvious one, although the name may not be familiar, and that is a compound called lignin. It's basically it's a kind of carbohydrate. It's a little bit different, but it's very indigestible, and it occurs in the bran. So if we're eating a whole wheat product, we're going to be getting that kind of fiber. And it's not the best kind of fiber, but it's fiber. It's not digestible in the small intestine. So that's fiber. That's good. But then there's some others that I think are really more interesting. And they occur not only in the bran, the outer layers of the kernel, but also in the interior part of the kernel where we get white flour that makes these food products, these baked products behind us. So that's good. All right, what are they? Well, number one, there's what we call, I have to do a little bit defining here, cell wall polysaccharides. Polysaccharides is just a carbohydrate. It's a more complex, longer chain of monosaccharides, simple carbohydrate molecules. And it's these polysaccharides that occur in nature throughout. I mean, every cell has a wall, right? And these walls are made of these polysaccharides. The one particular polysaccharide in wheat that stands out as a source of fiber is called arabinoxylans. Sorry, that's just what it's called. I didn't name it, but that's the scientific name. And basically, it is another one of those polymers, long chain of carbohydrate molecules. In this case, it's a 5-carbon, and that's important, molecule. So arabinoxylans, then also fructans. So here we go again. I keep saying long polymers. Well, these don't have to be very long, but they're still more than just one simple molecule. It's maybe a string of 6 to 8 to 10 fructose units attached end to end. That's what makes a fructan. So a fructan is important to us as a source of fiber because depending on how long that molecule is, how long that chain is, it won't be digested. So it goes to the colon and feeds those bacteria. It's like a prebiotic. Now there's the other side of this. Some of us can't handle fructans as well as others, and so we may have a fructan intolerance. About 1 in 15 cannot handle a high amount of fructans. So in that case, you want to consume fermented, highly fermented baked products that breaks that fructan down. But generally speaking, fructans are very beneficial to us. So we have lignin, We have cell wall polysaccharides and fructans. The fourth one is called, and this is in that starch family. Starch is carbohydrate, and there's really good kinds of starch, and there's not so good kinds of starch. The really good kind of starch is less digestible, so we call that resistant starch. The chemical name would be called amylose, but we'll just call it resistant starch. And then there's the rapidly digested starch. We call it amylopectin, but it's the amylose that we're really targeting as a source of fiber in our diet. It's already there in the kernel. Why can't we bring it out, make more of it in a kernel of wheat? So we have 4 possibilities there.
So that's what you all are really examining in the lab.
Yes.
And trying to figure out the right combinations to breed a higher fiber kernel. Is that
Right.
what I'm hearing?
3 out of 4.
Okay.
The fourth one we really haven't targeted, and that's the lignin in the bran. We could leave that for later. Right now we're going after those parts of the kernel that end up in white milled flour, because consumers right now just prefer not to eat a whole wheat loaf of bread. Okay, that's fine. Let's eat white bread, but let's make sure there's more fiber in that white bread, and we can get more fiber if we focus on those arabinoxylans, the fructans, or the resistant starch. So we've done that, and we've done it, I've been working on it for 12 years, at least on the resistant starch part of it. Fructans maybe a little bit less. We've actually published and shown that it's really not that difficult to increase the fructans in a wheat kernel. As long as we're increasing yield, we're increasing the fructans. So we're actually breeding a high fiber wheat just by breeding higher yields. Again, there's that part of our population though that cannot consume fructans. So a fructan is what we call a FODMAP, and there are many FODMAPs, but I should say this too, fructans are the more common FODMAP across all plants. It just so happens wheat is our source of fructans in our diet. We could probably get more fructans in an onion, but we just don't eat onions as much as we eat wheat. So really our fructan source is wheat, and that's a fermentable carbohydrate. Can cause problems to those who can't handle it, a FODMAP.
What are you and the wheat improvement team doing now on the topic of fiber and working to kind of increase amounts in the kernel?
So right now we're focused on, and I've talked about this before on the show, using molecular markers. These are gene markers. We're not actually selecting, we're not measuring fiber in the food. Eventually we want to do that, but right now there's just too much material to look at, to evaluate. So we use molecular markers. And so I've been selecting for certain genes that confer or produce a higher level of amylose, more resistant starch, more fructans, and trying to put those into new germplasm that might be released to wheat farmers. And that's worked to a certain degree, but I think at this point we have a wealth of germplasm that I know has a fiber benefit, but the markers are not going to tell me which ones those are. We are going to have to get down to the brass tacks and go measure that starch. And we don't have the best capability right now on campus, but I hope that day is coming soon. And if we don't, we'll just, we will go elsewhere and spend the dollars to do it. It's a very high priority. We need to do it. So I feel really confident on the resistant starch solution, but the arabinoxylin solution is a nationwide effort. There is literally across this country, most wheat breeding programs are now targeting arabinoxylins. And this came about by an effort spearheaded by what's called the Foundation for Innovation in Healthy Food. And it was the discovery in the United Kingdom of 2 varieties, not from the US, but one from UK and one from China, that provide good sources of arabinoxylins. We can do a lot of good. We can increase basically increase the fiber content by 1 to 3 grams. And remember, we're trying to get from 16 to 25. That's a pretty good step. That's an incremental step. Now we combine that with some other solutions like resistant starch. We can get a higher, we can get up to 20. And we don't have to rely on wheat entirely, but wheat should do its job.
It sounds like this is part of the broader conversation on a lot of food topics, food as medicine, right? Thinking it at that level in terms of preventing disease and living healthier lives.
Right, right. And not only that, it's a natural form of medicine, and that's what I like. I mean, we can add things to our foods. You know, we can just do more processing. We could actually add more fiber to our wheat foods. But I'm of the mindset that's maybe not the best way to go. I like the natural versions that's already existing in the native plant. Because I think we haven't done anything to adulterate it. It's there, it's like it's supposed to be. And by the way, this is enhanced not by GMO. This is all by natural means, conventional wheat breeding. And, but you know, it takes national effort. I can only do so much. We can do only so much in Oklahoma. This is going to take a concerted effort. That's why this coalition of grain fiber was formed, to get everybody going in the same direction. And to do that, yes, we can rely on a passive system, the commodity system, but I think what it's really going to boil down to is we develop a supply chain that's devoted to enhanced fiber wheat. And to do that though, even if we do that, we still have to have nutritionists involved. They have to know, okay, these foods feature this kind of wheat. We also have to have the healthcare community, you know, doctors, nurses, everybody involved, and be aware. And look at wheat a little bit differently.
You mentioned producers,
Yeah.
farmers, their role. What broader message do you have for them as we kind of wind down our conversation
Yeah,
today?
I think there's something in this for the wheat producer. Of course, they're consumers too. You know, I would think they'd want to consume this kind of wheat, but I think they want to produce it too because they're doing the right thing for American agriculture and the American consumer. Now let's possibly increase our revenue from it because this is a much higher value wheat plant that has 3 grams more fiber than the conventional, what we've been consuming all along. So if there's value in that crop, they should be compensated for producing that value, and they usually are. So I think there is a revenue possibility for our wheat farmers with this. I think our industry would make sure, our Oklahoma wheat industry would make sure that that option exists. We want to incentivize them. We want them to grow it. Having a high-yielding, high-fiber wheat, I think there'll be enough incentive anyway, but let's just make sure we get that job done.
All right, well, we appreciate the chance to go in depth in our conversation today, Brett. Lots of wonderful information, and really wish you and the Wheat Improvement team all the best as you try to make new discoveries and put all of this together for the future.
Thank you very much. We're working on it.
And to learn more about OSU's Wheat Improvement Team, go to wheat.okstate.edu. You can also find a link on the SUNUP website.